Hello friends, welcome to my channel Easy Lit. Today we do chapter 4, that is from the diary of Anne Frank. Who has not heard about Anne Frank? The name which is synonymous with Hitler's rule, where the world saw one of the most inhumane era under the Nazi regime. The diary of Anne Frank is an account of how Anne, along with her family, spent 2 years in hiding to escape the Nazi brutalities. They spent this time along with their family friends, the Van Dans, and later on another person joined them, that was Dussel, the dentist. And as a 13-year-old tells us through her diary how they spent those 2 years in hiding. She shows a very exuberant, positive, optimistic outlook most of the times, but there are times when terror grips her heart. Her fear is that any time the police will come and take them away to the concentration camps. Anne always wanted to be a writer, and it's so tragic that she never knew that her diary would be read by millions and millions after she passed away in a concentration camp. Her father, Otto Frank, was the sole survivor of this group who were in hiding together. And when he got Anne's diary, he felt it was a very unique record of the time they had spent, and he got it published, for he wanted to fulfill his daughter's wish of becoming a writer, never knowing that this would be an iconic book read even today by so many readers. Anne gets the diary as a birthday present, and she's thrilled receiving it, for she always liked to pen down words. But it's so ironic that she also muses whether her thoughts would ever be read by anyone. Who would be interested in the random thoughts written by a 13-year-old girl? Never realizing that fame as a writer would come to her posthumously, that is, after her death. In the initial part of the excerpt, Anne has made a statement which shows a lot of depth. She says that paper has more patience than people. What she means is that she can express any of her thoughts on paper. But if these same thoughts, her darkest thoughts, her happy thoughts, her positive thoughts, her thoughts about people or maybe her own family, if she had to express them to her friends, they could form judgments about her, they could form opinions about her, which she would never be comfortable with. So she feels that writing down thoughts which are in the deepest corners or recesses of her mind or heart, if she puts them on paper, she is sure that the paper would never judge her, and in this way whatever is in her mind or heart, she could have an outlet for pouring it out. And at this point of time, she is extremely sure that her diary is not going to be read by anybody, for she has no best friend at that point of time. Anne wants to keep this diary, for she feels she has no friend. Of course, she does have a loving family. She does have an elder sister, Margot, and she has umpteen number of friends. But she truly feels the lack of a genuine friend. She meets these friends very often, for she is by nature very amiable, very gregarious, very fun-loving. But all these friends are just superficial friends. She does not have that one genuine friend to whom she could express all her thoughts. And she says she has a need to get many things off her chest, things which she may have just kept within her. And she feels penning down all these thoughts in her diary could really be of great help. So for her, the diary becomes her friend, and she gives it a humane quality by calling it Kitty. She gives a brief sketch of her family in the beginning, for she feels Kitty, who is her true, genuine friend, would otherwise not understand all that Anne writes in her diary. She talks about her father, Otto Frank, whom she adores a lot. And Anne always had a very, very strong and close bond with her father. She says her father married at the age of 36 to her mother, Edith Frank, who was 25 at that time. Margot was born in 1926, and 3 years later, Anne was born on 12th June 1929. The family lived in Frankfurt, Germany till Anne was 4. Then the policies being practiced by Hitler against the Jews made her father emigrate to Holland in 1933. His wife followed him in September. During this brief period, Margot and Anne stayed with their grandmother in Aachen. Margot joined her parents in September, and Anne followed in February. Anne joined the Montessori nursery school, and in the 6th form, her teacher was her headmistress, Mrs. Cuperus, with whom Anne shared a good relationship, a close relationship. And when Anne had to leave the school, it was a very emotional moment for both the teacher and the student. Anne could not celebrate her birthday in the way she wanted in 1941. It had to be celebrated in a simple way because her grandmother fell ill and had to be operated. 1942 January, her grandmother passed away, and Anne says that she had never expressed to any of her family members how much she thought about her grandmother and how much she missed her. She was really fond of her grandmother. 1942, she celebrates her birthday in a much more better way to make up for the simple celebrations of the previous year. Anne's diary entry of 20th June 1942 is about her teachers going to have a meeting deciding who's going to be promoted and who's going to be detained. And she says the entire class is quite terrified of this prospect. But she and her friend, they have a hearty laugh because the boys behind them, Jacques and CN, have placed their entire holiday savings on a bet as to who will be promoted and who will be detained. Anne feels if it were up to her, a quarter of the class would be kept behind, for she finds them all so very dumb. But then she adds that teachers are very, very unpredictable, and you really don't know what decision they could take regarding who will be promoted and who will be detained. Anne is not so worried about her and her friends' results. She is quite sure they will get through. The only subject Anne is a little apprehensive about is maths. Anne says that her relation with all her teachers was quite good. There were 7 masters and 2 female teachers. Maths was taught to her by Mr. Keesing, who was an old-fashioned teacher. and he always had a problem with Anne, for she used to talk too much in the class. One day, after giving her several warnings, he assigns her extra homework, and that was to write an essay on a chatterbox, a very unusual topic, but Anne was not the one to be defeated by it. When she sits to write this assignment, she thinks out of the box. She doesn't want to just ramble and keep spaces between words. She wants to write, and she wants to convince Mr. Keesing through her words that talking was a very important trait for a student. And she would try to rectify it, but she was not sure if she could do it, for she had inherited this trait from her mother. And she says her mother spoke more than her. And she says, you really can't do anything about traits that you have inherited from your parents. It is genetic, and she thought that she could not stop talking. This was what she wrote in her essay, and Mr. Keesing found it quite humorous and did not take it in the wrong way. And in the next lesson too could not stop talking, and Mr. Keesing gave her another assignment. This time it was titled An Incorrigible Chatterbox. And Anne submitted that assignment too. 2 lessons, everything was fine. 3rd lesson, again Mr. Keesing, I think his patience got the better of him, and now he gave her an assignment titled Quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. This really tickled the funny bones of the class, and they all laughed uproariously. And Anne, who had a great sense of humor, also found it very, very funny. But Anne now says that she could not find any creative way of writing this assignment. And she wanted to be original and creative. So she takes the help of her friend San, who was pretty good with poetry. And San offers to write the entire assignment from the first verse to the last verse in poetry form, and Anne found this extremely innovative and creative. Anne felt that the poem was really magnificent and beautiful. It was about a mother duck, a father swan, and their 3 ducklings. The 3 ducklings are bitten to death by their father, for the father felt that they quacked a little too much. This was Anne's way of telling Mr. Keesing that if he kept putting constraints on her talking, it could result in her amiable personality becoming withdrawn. Mr. Keesing was a teacher with a good sense of humor. He took the joke in the right way, in fact appreciated it, read it out to the entire class, gave his own comments, and was magnanimous enough to read it to the other classes as well. He was a teacher who understood Anne's personality very well and never stopped her from talking in the class later on, never gave her extra assignments as punishments, and Anne felt that he had changed, for he too started making jokes in the class, quite a difference from the earlier personality of his, where she had called him an old-fashioned teacher. Students, I hope this synopsis must have helped you all, and you all might have understood the importance of the diary of Anne Frank from a humanitarian point of view. And I only hope you all have happy reading and happy listening. Thank you.